Bernard's frustration reached its peak when he found his neighbor's semi-truck once again blocking his driveway. This intentional act felt like a personal attack, pushing Bernard to his limit. Considering his options, Bernard started forming a plan, determined to make his neighbor regret their actions. Hastily preparing for work and filled with anger, Bernard honked his horn repeatedly, expecting his neighbor to appear and move the truck. However, to his disappointment, there was no sign of anyone coming out of the house. Known among his friends as a laid-back and easygoing individual, Bernard Adams hailed from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He maintained a small circle of close friends, valuing quality over quantity in his relationships. The neighborhood had always been characterized by kindness and friendliness. However, a shift occurred when their new neighbor, Terry Brown, settled in next door. Terry, a divorced man with aspirations to launch his trucking business, relocated to Albuquerque. The atmosphere changed drastically when he opted to operate his business from his residence. The typically serene street transformed into a bustling hub with the constant arrival and departure of Terry's vehicles. As time passed, neighbors began conversing over their fences, expressing their dissatisfaction with the changes that had befallen their once tranquil and idyllic neighborhood. "Bernard, he parks a massive semi-truck right in front of your house," M. Thompson remarked. Due to being at work during most of the bustling activity, Bernard remained unaware of the neighborhood changes. One evening, while retrieving the mail from the mailbox, Bernard exchanged a wave with his new neighbor, Terry. Approaching Terry with a mix of uncertainty and curiosity, Bernard wasn't sure what to anticipate. Despite hearing numerous tales about Terry from other neighbors, Bernard aimed to form his own impressions of the man. "Hello there, neighbor. I'm Bernard. Welcome to the neighborhood. How have you been settling in around here?" Bernard inquired, making an effort to convey politeness and warmth in his greeting. Bernard offered his hand to Terry for a handshake. Terry appeared amiable, yet Stephen was poised to glean more insights about his new neighbor. "Great to meet you too. I'm Terry. I've noticed you leaving early with your lady. Got to say, she's quite a catch." "You struck gold there," Terry remarked with a chuckle, initiating a friendly conversation. With that remark, Bernard began to realize that Terry wasn't your typical neighbor. Engaging in small talk, Terry elaborated on his trucking business. Unaware of the inconvenience it posed, Bernard felt fortunate that he commuted to work by car. He couldn't fathom what his neighbors were enduring, but he was soon to discover it for himself. One bright and sunny Friday morning, Bernard was up and getting himself ready for a day of work. He loved Fridays and couldn't wait to finish so that he could enjoy a quiet weekend. However, as he stepped out of his front door, he was met with an unexpected sight. One of Terry's semi-trucks was blocking his driveway. "Is this guy for real?" Bernard muttered to himself. Surely, Terry knew that this was the time that he would be leaving for work, yet he still parked the truck there. He marched over to Terry and knocked on his door. He could hear music blaring from inside. He started banging loudly on the door now, hoping that Terry would finally hear him. When Terry finally opened the door, "Top of the morning to you, neighbor. Want to join me for some breakfast? I'm making bacon," Terry offered. However, Bernard was not amused. He tried really hard for Terry not to notice how annoyed he really was, but failed miserably. "Morning. Can I ask you to please move your semi from my driveway?" Bernard asked. "Oh yeah, about that. I was going to come by and ask if I could park there, but I got really busy. You see, I don't really have space to park it anywhere else," Terry replied nonchalantly. At that point, Bernard was silently fuming. He just wanted to get to work. How did this guy not understand that? "Okay, cool, but can you move it now so that I can pull my car out?" Bernard asked. He could see that Terry was going to be very difficult. Yeah, no can do. I'm afraid. My driver just left, and I can't drive such a big semi myself," Terry responded. Bernard widened his eyes in disbelief. He had never heard anything like this before. "Terry, you're costing me my job here, and I'm losing time," Bernard exclaimed. Terry shrugged, still maintaining his nonchalant attitude. "Sorry man, can't help it. Maybe you should talk to your boss about flexible work hours or something." "Not my problem," he replied, turning back toward his house as if dismissing the entire situation. Bernard was flabbergasted, realizing that reasoning with Terry was futile. Bernard decided to take matters into his own hands. He stormed back to his house, grabbed his phone, and dialed the local police. The police, understanding the urgency, promised to send an officer over to address the issue. Finally, the sound of sirens approached, signaling the arrival of Police Officer Rodriguez. A stern-faced but composed officer, Rodriguez stepped out of the patrol car. He assessed the situation and immediately understood the severity of the issue. Addressing both men, Officer Rodriguez firmly stated, "This obstruction is a violation of city ordinances. You can't block someone's driveway, Mr. Brown. You need to move your truck immediately." Terry, however, remained defiant. "I can't move it right now. My driver left, and I can't drive it myself," he argued, refusing to acknowledge the consequences of his actions. Officer Rodriguez wasn't swayed. "That's not my problem. You have a responsibility to your neighbors. If you can't move it, I'll have it towed, and you'll be facing fines for the violation." As the officer radioed for a tow truck, Bernard couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and frustration. The tow truck arrived shortly, and the driver efficiently hooked up Terry's semi. Terry, now realizing the severity of the situation, frantically pleaded with the officer to reconsider. "See, officer, this is a brand new truck. You can't just tow it away," Terry pleaded, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. Officer Rodriguez was not listening. Bernard, feeling a surge of triumph, stared at Terry, who was now left to face the consequences of his inconsiderate actions. The other neighbors stepped out of their houses and watched as the huge semi-truck was being pulled away. Miss Thompson saw this as an opportunity to air her own grievances. "Officer, we as a neighborhood are not happy with the noise and activities happening in our street because of Mr. Brown's trucking business. Our neighborhood went from peaceful to disruptive in a matter of weeks, and we're not going to stand for it," she complained. A unified outcry erupted from the gathered neighbors, each expressing their discontent with Terry's disruptive presence. Officer Rodriguez, realizing the magnitude of the situation, assured them that he would look into the matter further. Amidst the heated discussions, some neighbors suggested taking legal action against Terry to maintain the tranquility of their community. Bernard, initially hesitant about escalating the conflict further, felt compelled to support the idea. As news of the neighborhood dispute spread, local media outlets caught wind of the story. The media coverage brought both sympathy and criticism to Bear Canyon. While some viewers sided with the frustrated neighbors, others saw Terry as a small business owner trying to make a living. Amidst the media frenzy, a court date was set to address the legal actions proposed by the community. As the judge carefully listened to the grievances and considered the evidence, it became evident that Bear Canyon's tranquility hung in the balance. After extensive legal battles and careful consideration, the judge finally rendered a verdict. Terry Brown was instructed to move his trucking business to a commercial area distant from Bear Canyon's residential neighborhood. While the ruling stirred mixed emotions among the locals, it represented a significant triumph for those who had fought to uphold the area's peace and serenity. Reluctantly, Terry accepted the court's decision, acknowledging the disruption his actions had caused his neighbors. With Terry's business relocated, Bear Canyon gradually returned to its former tranquility. As media interest waned, the once fractured community endeavored to mend the neighborly bonds strained during the ordeal.